Good evening and welcome to Shoreline City Hall. My name is David Francis. I'm the city's public art coordinator, and part of my job involves working with local artists, often waiting for them to come to me in search of exhibition opportunities. It is more important than ever to be inclusive of voices who are at risk, those voices on the margin or between borders. I met tonight's artist at a coffee shop in Shoreline last fall. That in itself may not be significant beyond laying the groundwork for tonight's performance, and yet deeply concealed in that simple encounter is the very bedrock of history. Permit me a short digression before I finish my introduction of tonight's speaker. Shoreline, as you may know, has its own fascinating history regarding communities of color. Racially restrictive covenants barring home ownership by non-whites was widespread throughout the region. And as William Boeing's developers outlined for what would eventually become Shoreline's entire west side, quote, "No property in said addition shall at any time be sold, conveyed, rented, or leased, in whole or in part, to any person or persons not of the white or Caucasian race." 70 years later, our city, like other cities in the region, is still in the process of recovering from the harm done by those sentences. The covenants are gone, of course, and today our city embraces the diversity that it shunned in the past. Thank you for the digression. I now want to return to the main event that you came here for tonight, to listen to a unique voice unlike any other. In Las Vegas, he hosted a social justice radio program on KLAV and won awards for his commentaries in Las Vegas City Life, an alternative weekly newspaper. Now approaching 50, he is still tenaciously writing every day of his life, decades after completing his studies, persevering against significant odds. Please join me in giving a warm welcome hand of applause to the Reverend, the legendary Saab Lofton.
Thanks for coming out, and welcome to Saturday night's main event. I've got that pose from Hulk Hogan. That's what he used to do back in the 80s whenever Saturday night's main event was on. Let me jump right into my next song. This is one that I originally wrote about W, but I tweaked the lyrics so that it would be a bit more current. Now, if you remember Top Gun with Tom Cruise, remember that they sung that loving feeling from the Righteous Brothers. Well, this is to the tune of that, and if you haven't figured it out, basically what I do is a cross between Rage Against the Machine and Weird Al Yankovic. I satirize songs, so you get the gist of it soon enough. You'll never learn the truth if your news is corporate owned. War is big business and torture can be condoned. I'm trying hard not to get pissed, but then I think of Jeff Sessions. Stop Trump by protesting, even if they're arresting. Stop Trump by protesting or we'll die. Blowing dog whistles to white supremacists. Grabbing private parts and flirting with Holocaust. All the scandals and all the lying. And then there's Paul Ryan. Stop Trump by protesting, even if they're arresting. Stop Trump by protesting or we'll die. They'll try to say that Trump is inevitable, but y'all need to know how that is so much bull. Stop Trump by protesting, even if they're arresting. Stop Trump by protesting or we'll die. Just hold it. Thank you. Yeah, this is analogous to if, I don't know, if Ray Bradbury decided that he was going to try and play the banjo to draw attention to something wicked this way comes, or if, I don't know, if Isaac Asimov decided that he was going to start playing a harmonica in order to draw attention to Foundation. I mean, you know, you do what you got to do, because as we know, this is an illiterate culture. This is an anti-intellectual apocalypse. Therefore, you got to do what you can to draw attention to reading. Hence the title of this whole thing, Mara, Make America Read Again. Let's see here. One thing I wanted to bring up, though, is who I am, because you figure, because of all the censorship, and, you know, by censorship I mean the denial of attention. Because in the old Soviet Union, the state decided what the public saw and didn't see. In America, you have a handful of corporations owning every major media outlet that there is, and I've pissed off each and every last one of them. So, you know, that's why, let me see, I don't see him. No, Daniel Westneat from the Seattle Times is not here again. So, proving my point. So who am I? Well, let's see, real quick, 30 years ago, I helped Jack the King Kirby, the co-founder of Marvel Comics, get some of his artwork back. That's how I cut my teeth in activism. 20 years ago, that blue book, the little blue book you see there, exposed Farrakhan's Nation of Islam's connection to the white supremacist movement. And yeah, I thought I was going to end up the American equivalent of Salman Rushdie, but I'm still here. 10 years ago, the Las Vegas City Life, basically the Nevada equivalent of the Seattle Stranger, and I don't think, no one's from the Strangers here. The Seattle Strangers equivalent in Nevada, the Las Vegas City Life. For years I won awards, writing a column, and then I was censored. Oh, no, they're not going to call it censorship because it's Big Brother. Big government wasn't involved. But, yeah, winning awards like these, writing for them, and yeah, you know, kind of like a relationship gone bad, like someone cheating on you, you know. After years of loyal service, they stabbed me in the back like Julius Caesar. So, you know, that was 10 years ago. And then 5 years ago, let's see, 5 years ago, now this is a bit tricky. I was in an apartment in downtown Seattle where the anti-intellectualism in the black community caused my noisy neighbors to blast their stereos all the time. And I needed to cathartically vent my frustration. So I took my frustrations out on the Ugandan government, which is why the Ugandan government took the death penalty for homosexuality off the table, because I cyberstalked President Museveni for, God, years. Oh yeah, go to ask Uganda about me. Ask the Ugandan government about Saab Lofton, don't figure. So yeah, there are 500,000 people in Africa that are alive right now because I trolled. Is that the slang term? I trolled. And here's the thing about these African leaders. They're so egotistical. When people get on my case about my ego, oh no, you ain't seen ego until you've dealt with the Ugandan parliament. Museveni, the president of Uganda, for instance. First of all, he's trying to get away with not having any term limits. He wants to stay in office forever. That's the latest intel about his ass. But here's the thing, though. He has 40, or at least he had, count them, 40 different Facebook pages. I got two. He has 40. Guess what? I cyberstalked them all. And every day when he would get up in the morning and look on his Facebook page and he would see me dropping knowledge about how homosexuality is all natural, how he's an idiot for even thinking about illegalizing it, he just, well, I mean, I wasn't alone, obviously. I was, how do I put this? I was to that campaign what Captain America was to World War II. And I understand, I mean that on two levels, be it reality or fantasy. Because in fantasy, of course, we've seen what Cap can do. But in reality, we're talking about a morale booster created by Jack Kirby, who I helped 30 years ago. And so, be it as a morale booster in reality or in fantasy, he still played a pivotal role. Now, of course, it would take the angel from It's a Wonderful Life to tell for sure. You know, you'd have to see some parallel universe in which you were never born to see for certain how much of a difference you've made. But I'm pretty sure that in such a parallel universe in which, say, my father wore a condom, those Ugandans would be dead right now. I'm just going to lay that out. I'm just going to put that out there. So that's who I am. I'm that kind of a guy. And then recently, or actually this is still within the past 5 years, this is something I'm very proud of. Every year in Oregon, there's an event called Wonder Woman Day. Drawings of the character are sold at an auction, and all the money raised is donated to battered women's shelters and domestic violence programs. Now this marks the first time that Wonder Woman Day was held in Texas. Big mistake. Now see, here's what my thinking at the time was, well, you know, it's Texas, so I'll go with a Western theme, right? I'll say, yeah, you know, and since the Lone Ranger is non-lethal, and since I've always been against the death penalty, I mean, I just got the Ugandan government to, you know, stop contemplating killing its gay population. So I figured it's a perfect segue, you see. And so this drawing was submitted that year, the year that Wonder Woman Day was held in the great state of Texas, right? And for the first time in all the years that I had participated in Wonder Woman Day, for the first time, a drawing of mine did not sell. You know why? Because the Texans didn't appreciate a Negra telling them that they couldn't kill people. How dare I? The gall, the arrogance, how dare I tell them not to violate the 6th commandment, right? Boy, exactly. So, that's who I am. Okay. Well, I remember an interview. God, what is her name? I can't think of the actress's name for the life of me. But she does the voice of Lisa Simpson from The Simpsons, right? And so they were asking, you know, is the show an example of the liberal bias in the media? And she had this very pat answer, you know, kind of sort of thing that, you know, keeps her from, you know, feeling uncomfortable. Well, we go after everyone, the right and the left. Well, I do that too, but not so much. I mean, obviously one needs to get their feelings hurt far more than the other, but whenever the left does fuck up, I'm there, like, I don't know, internal affairs, you know, you've seen enough cop movies to know how that works, you know, if there's a cop shooting, police shooting, what happens? You know, the cop gets sent to internal affairs, right? Well, I'm basically the internal affairs of the left wing. That's why ain't no commies up in here. Now, I don't see anyone from Socialist Alternative. Where is Kashama Sawant? She ain't here. I invited her, but she ain't coming because she's afraid of me. So here we go. Gonna mess with the left a little bit. This is to the tune of the Eagles' classic, Hotel California. After 8 years of W, a blind chimp would look good. But instead of voting for the Greens like we should, we fell for the Democrats and their blackmail scheme. They claimed the rapture would occur if we didn't vote for them. Then he spoke at the convention, looking just like Will Smith. And all the swooning women thought, oh, that's the man I want to be with. Since then, every white girl and their hippie mamas wore his buttons and his t-shirts, even though they fear niggas. Welcome to the Hotel Barack Obama. Such a pretty boy, and so articulate too. Plenty of whites love the Hotel Barack Obama, both the Clintons and Republicans. He won't rule out invading Iran or Pakistan. He's got a lot of our soldier boys in Afghanistan. If and when they come back, they can't find any work. Some ask for spare change, some suck dick for crack. So I had me a protest, end the war no more bull. That spirit ain't been here since the Battle of Seattle. And still those protests were censored by Fox News. Fair and balanced, the masses here, only right-wing views. Welcome to the Hotel Barack Obama.
Such a pretty boy, and so articulate too. Plenty of blacks love the Hotel Barack Obama, those who smoke weed and watch BET. Capitalism's dying, but they'll bail out Wall Street, so I say we need to tax the rich, create jobs that are green. Obama shrugs his shoulders. I can only do little things. If I do too much, I'm afraid I'll go out like Dr. King. Last thing I remember, I was calling him a punk. I told Obama to grow a pair, or I'll toss him with the junk. Relax, said his groupies. We love Obama's big ears. You can talk all the shit you want, but we want 4 more years. Saying this in City Hall. Okay, see, I'm out of my element. You know, someone said, "Oh, I should get a karaoke machine." I'll say, "What for? That's not going to help. That's not going to make me any more musically inclined." like it's magic. Like, oh, because there's music in the background, all of a sudden I'll become a singer. No, I'm an author. Let me just get to what I'm actually good at. So, let me see here. Defend the archive. Let's start off with how it was written. DTA was the result of an experiment, a social experiment, as the Joker said in The Dark Knight. You see, when Frank Herbert wrote Dune in the early 60s, he stayed at home, and he cooked, and he cleaned, and he did the laundry, while his wife, Beverly, was probably one of the first female advertising executives. This was in Tacoma, Washington. I mean, not that it matters, but I mean, local connection. You know. So, yeah, you know. In fact, let me just read you this quote from Herbert himself. "My wife, Bev, was our main source of income. I stayed at home, did the cooking and the laundry, and wrote. Our society is becoming more and more accepting of this. There's still resistance to it. The macho dream still exists, but the macho dream, of course, originated in very primitive times. Primitive, like the president of the Electoral College, for instance. So that's in the early 1960s. In the early 1970s, a guy I know you've heard of, George Lucas, created the Star Wars saga under the same exact conditions. In the book Once Upon a Galaxy by Alan Arnold, was your wife, Marcia, a support in the difficult times? Oh yes, she was. When I was writing Star Wars, she was editing for Martin Scorsese, so we had separate careers, but she was giving us the financial support I needed to carry on. So here we've got not one but 2 instances in which the biggest classics in science fiction history were both the result of gender role reversal. If you've seen the movie Aaron Brockovich with Aaron Eckhart and Julia Roberts, you know exactly what I mean. He stayed home, took care of the kids, while she took on PG&E and won. All right? If there was not any role reversal, all those folks in Hinckley, California would have been dead by now of cancer drinking that nasty-ass water. So, gender role reversal has proven itself. To keep from living with my mother, I got on Craigslist and I found a woman by the name of Carla Ann Rosebrook who lives in Edmond, Washington. And for 2 years, we enjoyed the kind of domestic bliss one would see on, say, a sitcom or the Hallmark Channel. And then one day, she decides that she is going to channel TLC's song, No Scrubs. If you ain't got a car and you're walking at night with some redneck with a truck because she wanted a man with a vehicle to drive her home from her colonoscopy afterward. And I'm just, you know. And so as a result of that, I am now living in the garage of a house with no electricity and no heat this winter. Her adulterous betrayal, her treachery straight out of Lando Calrissian or the Hunchback from 300 did not stop this from being written. Anyone else would have, and understand too that for the past 15 years I've been boycotting day jobs in the most unique labor struggle of all time to prove just how good of a storyteller I am. Her faith in that mission was what got us hooked up as a couple to begin with, and she betrayed that. So But the good news is that despite her stabbing me in the back like Julius Caesar, I still got this done. And so, I'm going to read something from here. In the Star Wars saga, there's the Jedi. In Star Trek, there's Starfleet. But in the universe of my book, there is an all-female organization called the Chamunda, which is named after the Hindi goddess of war. It is described in the book, or at least implied, alluded to, as being the direct descendant of something that exists right now in real life called the Gallabhai Gang of India. You can Google that. The Gallabhai Gang of India is the closest equivalent to the closest equivalent to Batman that real life has. You're talking about an army, literally an army of women in India right now, all wearing matching pink outfits and toting these bamboo sticks. If they catch a man trying to marry a girl, if they catch a man trying to rape a woman, if they catch a man abusing his wife, out come the bamboo sticks, pap, pap, pap. And yeah, they're non-lethal, because, I mean, what's a bamboo stick going to do? But it will hurt your ass and cause you to cease and desist real quick. And there's like, again, these women travel by the dozens. They never go alone. I mean, it's like there's always at least a dozen of them at a time. It's not a couple of dozen. Sometimes they travel in the hundreds. And just, again, matching pink outfits, bamboo sticks. They catch a man fucking up, and they will beat the shit out of him. And so this real-life organization is the basis of the organization that defends the human race against all threats in the universe of my novel. And they all train like Batman. So this scene, describes their regimen. In the distance had been an open plain resembling a battlefield where dozens of predominantly gargantuan women underwent the most strenuous training eyes of man had ever seen. Examples of the martial artistry that is tame chivalry were demonstrated by little girls capable of thrusting their dainty fists through bricks, tree trunks, and even concrete. Apprentices regularly sparred with 2 or 3 masters simultaneously in order to become accustomed to fighting against overwhelming odds, and several ladies ran relays through wildly elaborate obstacle courses while animals were released specifically to be on their heels. Yeah. And so they trained their entire lives to be these ultimate badasses. And so these are the guardians of humanity in the 31st century. 1,000 years from now, there are no men in law enforcement. It's not that they're not allowed, it's just that it just doesn't occur to men. They just leave that work to the women. In 1,000 years, they've just come to the conclusion that women are just better at keeping the peace than men. Go figure. Despite how Superman looks, despite, the pale skin and the keen features and the straight hair, he is an alien. There is no difference between Superman and E.T. There's no difference between Superman and the Blob. There's no difference between Superman and any other extraterrestrial. The only difference is one can get away with posing as a GQ underwear model and the other can't. Same thing with Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. They may look like a couple of white boys, but they ain't from around here either. And it's important to think in these terms, because that is the one thing more than anything else that will end all this. It will unite us overnight. Literally, overnight. Social distinctions between social classes would cease to exist if, on the news tonight, something even Fox News couldn't deny, oh look, there's a mothership hovering above the Space Needle. And it ain't from the Air Force, it ain't from Bangor. So, explain this. We are not alone. And so, that unifying thought is what will ultimately save us. In lieu of an actual extraterrestrial visitation, in lieu of an actual close encounter of the third kind, like Ozymandias from Alan Moore's Watchmen, I decided to fake it. You see, I figured, in lieu of an actual first contact scenario, I decided to create one. And so for the past 3 years, I've been cyberstalking every white supremacist on the planet with this website right here. If you go to the website, what you'll find is a short story that asks a very simple question. Seeing as how everyone always forgets that Superman is an extraterrestrial because of how good-looking of a white boy he is, here's a thought. What if, okay, just for shits and giggles, when the spaceship from Krypton landed in the cornfield in Kansas and Mom, Pa, Kent in Smallville opened up the capsule, the life pod, what if they saw a baby as dark as Gary Coleman from Different Strokes? Would the world have loved him the same? Would the legend of Superman have remained the same if the baby that they found in the ship was dark-skinned, flat-featured, looked like a young Taye Diggs? What if? What would happen? Now, I was giving a lecture at the community college in Seattle. And this one black kid, he had me cracking up. I mean, I was literally on the floor. He said, Mr. Lofton, with all due respect, you know goddamn well, if a couple of white folks found a black baby in a starship, they'd call animal control. The story would end like that. It would be like, it's like Eddie Murphy's joke about black folk going into a haunted house. Instead of a 2-hour movie, you'd have a 5-minute video. It still cracks me up. Then, of course, you got at the other end of the spectrum, you got, like the white supremacists. Oh, it wouldn't be any different. We'd still embrace him. He'd still be considered the greatest hero of all time. Yeah, right. Yeah, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you if you believe that shit. There would be differences. Get on the website, read it, and you'll see what I mean. And it's an illustration of the existence of white privilege, which basically is essentially this. The odds are in your favor, the paler you are. If you look like Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston, you might as well be born with a rabbit's foot and a whole pasture of 4-leaf clovers in your backyard. If you look like Yaphet Kotto or Tracy Chapman, you might as well just stay indoors, because you step outside, you're fucked. So, and then there's a wide range of degrees in between, you see. So, and that's what this illustrates. And so again, I've been getting on YouTube, and I find white supremacist websites, David Duke, Richard Spencer, Jared Taylor, Milo Yiannopoulos, you name it, I hit them all. I stalk them like Batman stalks the criminals of Gotham City. And so, call up any white supremacist, bring up my name, see what happens. They'll be like, oh, not that guy, oh God, oh, shoot. Amongst white supremacists, I'm like Voldemort from Harry Potter. I'm the he who shall not be named. There must be, because after all these years, I know damn well I had to have cost some recruits. It's not about trying to convert someone that's already knee-deep in it, right? I mean, it would be nice if, like, Jared Taylor were to call me up one day and be like, you know what, Saab, I finally saw the light. Thank you. Thank you. I had a Ron Kovac 180-degree paradigm shift thanks to your short story. It'd be nice. If that happened, I bet you the fuck Daniel Westney from the Seattle Times would be right here taking notes if that had happened. But that hasn't happened yet. What I am pretty sure has already happened is that somewhere out there's some 17-year-old and a white boy from Meth City, Trailer Park, USA. He went left instead of right and said, okay, I'm not going to join the Klan. I had to have cost him recruits after 2 years, 3 years of this. Had to have. Which is why, again, I'm like Voldemort to them. He who shall not be named. And so that's what it's all about. Counter-recruitment. Counter. Never censor. One of the reasons why I don't have the support from the commies is because I believe in free speech. Clearly, from all this I've been singing. And they don't. Bree Newsom scurrying up the flagpole like Curious George to censor the Confederate flag. That's not the answer. As Professor Noam Chomsky said, social action must be animated by a vision of a future society. And I don't want a future society where people are censored or tortured or murdered like in the Soviet Union. I want more than free universal health care and free colleges. I want free speech too. And so that's what it's all about. And thank God for Scandinavia. Senator Bernie Sanders pointing out how in Scandinavia they have free speech and free health care at the same time. Imagine that. See, throughout the Cold War, we've been told, oh, well, you can't have both. You can have one or the other, but you can't have both. How? If you're in a relationship, you want the total package. You don't want just someone that looks good. You want someone that's going to be good to you. You want it all. And rightfully so, right? Same is the case with any society. You want a government that's going to provide you free speech and free health care at the same time, not one that's going to make you choose one or the other. Back in the 80s, they had a commercial. Two folks walking down the street. Oh, You know, I got a jar of peanut butter. Oh, I got a big old hunk of chocolate. Oh, crashing each other. Oh, you got chocolate on my peanut butter. And you got peanut butter on my chocolate, motherfucker. And so, oh, it tastes brilliant. That's Scandinavia. Free speech and free healthcare at the same time, you see. You know. And it's you know, you ask the libertarian or you ask the Stalinist, oh, you can't have it. It defies the laws of physics. You can't have them both. You can, in fact, have them both. I don't see the Scandinavians suddenly ceasing to exist, do you? If I call up Norway right now and ask them how they're doing, they'd be like, oh, we're doing delightful. Oh, thank you very much. You know. In fact, how do we know this to be the case? Because Trump loves Norway. And he called every other country a shithole country. I mean, but here's the funny thing about that, though. Here's the funny thing about that. Throughout the Cold War, the CIA would go from brown-skinned country to brown-skinned country, from tan-skinned country to tan-skinned country, violently replacing the legitimately, democratically elected leadership with a corporate puppet. Textbook example being Guatemala. Jacobo Arbenz, all he wanted to do was to have a Scandinavian model socioeconomic system. And he went to United Fruit. United Fruit said, oh, would you please pay just a wee bit more in taxes so that I can feed my people? What happens? Someone snitched to the CIA. All the Stalinists are taking over Guatemala. Next thing you know, they took out poor Jacobo Arbenz and replaced him with death squads that had been nothing but bloodshed ever since. And let's see, Iran in 53, Guatemala in 54, the Congo in 1960, Brazil in 64, Indonesia in 65, otherwise known as the year living dangerously, Chile in 1973, El Salvador in 1980, and then as recently as 2002, they tried to take out my boy Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. The same damn thing. Note the pattern, though. Note the pattern. They only go after the tan brown-skinned countries, not the white ones. Because I have, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have yet to hear of this. Boom! President of Norway, cease and desist. You will no longer provide the Norwegian people with free universal health care or we will blow your head off. Has that happened? Once. Has it happened once in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland? No, it hasn't. Why? Because despite what the necrophiliacs from the Libertarian Party who love to dry hump Ayn Rand's corpse, oh, they can talk all that free market stuff they want to, but they know damn well when they get sick, they want to go to the doctor for free like any other normal, sane person. And so, despite the trash that they talk, the fact of the matter is, we have a society on a global scale where it's national socialism, as in socialism for a certain skin tone. So, if you're white, you can go to the doctor for free, so long as you go to Scandinavia. But if you're black, you better get back. And the only reason why we don't have it here is because this country is getting less and less white dominated, more and more tan and brown dominated. You see? When the Cuban Revolution happened, the majority of the Cuban population was pale. Now, it's not so much. And so somewhere in the elite, the Illuminati, the Freemason, whatever the hell, the Purple People Eaters, whatever they're calling themselves this week, these people, they're saying, oh, look at these figures. Bob, did you take a look at this? Look at these stats. In 1959, you know, there was X amount of pale-skinned Cubans and X amount of dark-skinned Cubans. Now, there are so many more darkies in Cuba. Where'd they come from? You know what happened? Because of the revolution, they could go to the doctor for free, and they could go to college for free, and they would live long enough to procreate, and they would have more brown-skinned babies, and so on and so on and so forth, and they would exponentially multiply to the point where you got all these brown-skinned folks running around benefiting from socialism. We can't have that here. If we, as mixed-blooded, as much of a rainbow coalition melting pot as America is, if we were to have socialism in America, there wouldn't be a white face in sight in 50 years. And they know this. They know this. It's something to keep in mind. If you're wondering, if you're white and you're wondering, how come is it you can't go to the doctor for free? It's because the elite don't want to share with anyone that doesn't look exactly like them. If you want free universal health care, then go to the elite in this country, go to the power, or the 1%, whatever they're calling themselves, and say, look, get over your fear of descendants who, like my starring character, look like Jesse Williams from Grey's Anatomy. Get over your fear of a tan, brown future and start sharing the wealth so that everyone, be someone looking like Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston, or someone that looks like Yaphet Kotto and Tracy Chapman, it doesn't matter. If you let everyone be able to go to the doctor for free, let everyone be able to go to college for free, and stop worrying about how dark or light skinned your descendants are going to be. There we go. That's the answer. That and first contact, that'll do. Thank you. Obviously, first contact will hasten things, but we shouldn't have to wait for aliens to show up. We could do all this now. Folks have got to get over their fear of the future. Questions? Well, there's got to be some.
Hey, Saab, in your book, you divide up the chapters into Sunday. I think we start on Sunday.
Yeah.
We go through the. Is there a reason for that temporal frame there, or why did you decide to go by the days?
That's a good question. There's a couple of reasons for that. One reason is so that people know that, well, typically in our minds, we assume that the week begins on a Sunday, yes? I mean, that's pretty much standard. It's pretty much common for us to assume, for the most part. I mean, other calendars gauge time different ways, but, you know, for the most part, in the Western world at least, we consider the beginning of the week, the start of the week, to be a Sunday. And we consider the end, the finale, the climax of the week to be a Saturday. Right from the beginning, that, okay, this is not going to be a long read. There is an end. We are building to something. You know, there is something to look forward to. There is something to wait for. And so that was the one thing. I wanted to make sure that, Lord knows I'm the last person to pander to the illiterate. But if folks do have a problem with reading, if they do, then they can know, say, well, if the first chapter is called Sunday, I know we're heading towards something. I know the big bonanza is going to be in Saturday chapter. So there's something to look forward to. So there's that aspect of it too. There's another, the other reason why I went that route is because people always talk about, oh, I had such a hellish week, right? Everyone who has a 9-to-5 job is saying, oh God, the week from hell. Well, basically, that's, the book describes, you know, the characters, and they're going, their week of hell. So there's like two reasons.
Thank you.
Well, I was going to ask a question.
Yeah.
So, my field, professional field, was urban planning, and a couple of years ago, I was attending an event at my alma mater, and our guest speaker was a black woman psychiatrist whose life work has involved the breaking up of African American neighborhoods in metropolitan areas and the effect on black communities. She gave a very passionate presentation. There were questions. And it was about 2 years ago, so there was a lot going on, and I raised my hand and I said, most of the people in this room are white, and perhaps they share my concern. And do you have any advice, response, insight into what people who are identified as white privileged can do to contribute? And she said, I don't believe anybody's any better than anybody else.
Okay, wait. The speaker is saying that.
No,
I don't believe that anyone's. That's it. That's
She
it.
said,
What
that's
is it?
the end of it. So what is your take on it?
What the hell is that? That's like a Hallmark greeting card interior. That doesn't help.
Well,
See, so you know that.
okay, she's a woman, she's black, and she's a psychiatrist, and she is a professional in urban issues, and that's
Okay,
all,
well-
that's what she said.
Kudos. Okay, then great. Okay, then she'll be like Fraser Crane from the TV show. She'll make a great shrink to Evelyn. She's a shitty speaker, and that's all she had to say. Her response was, "Well, I don't believe anyone is any better than anybody." That's it. That's all she had to say. See, you know what? Hold on. That irks me. Because here I am sleeping in a garage with no electricity and no heat this winter, and here she's got a house, and that's the best she can do? See, that ain't right. See, I recently spoke at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Kitsap County. I rocked that mother. I rocked it like it one thing. Everyone admitted that. Now, the guy who organized the event, he said this in the email. He said, Reverend Carol McKinney, she did okay, but she spoke too long, and she gave a very generic, very, very vapid, again, Hallmark greeting card type speech. I came on there and just went, booyakah, right? Now, Phil Davis, he emails me like a couple of days later. He says, Saab, what I emailed you was meant to be private. I didn't mean for the world to know that you were better than Carol McKinney. I said, well, wait, hold it now. Why not? If this woman is going home to a house with her bills paid, and I'm going back to a garage, it reminds me of that skit in Living Color. Remember the show in Living Color? Damon Wayans and all that, Jim Carrey? Okay. They had a satire of Star Trek called Star Trek. Instead of Wrath of Khan, it was the Wrath of Farrakhan. In the comedy skit, Farrakhan takes over the Starship Enterprise. There's a moment when the satire of Mr. Spock says, well, Captain, I'm smarter than you, I'm stronger than you, I'm more powerful than you. Why am I not in command? I just sent the Phil Davis for you, yeah. That's me and you, son. Right here, right now. Just replace Carol McKinney with Captain Kirk and replace my black ass with Mr. Spock. Here I am, homeless, and a better speaker than Carol McKinney, but she's going home to her house and it's the same thing. Okay, not better than everyone else? That's all equal. We're not. We're that's that. Dr. King said that to keep from getting killed. That's it. Little intel, little inside information. When Dr. King said, we're all men are created equal. No. How can we? How can we be created equal? Look at Donald Trump. The guy looks like Flash Gordon's grandfather, and he is in charge of the free world, so-called. And then you've got folks that they don't have orange hair. And they should be running the country, but they're not. So no, we're not equal. We're not equal. Equality, I don't even think should be the goal. Fairness, justice, equity, that should be the goal. All right? See, if we were all equal, then we would have something called the flat tax, which is where everyone pays the same amount of it. We know goddamn well that don't work. No. Can you imagine? I don't know how much y'all pay in taxes every year, but I know damn well Bill Gates needs to be paying more in taxes than everybody else. We are not equal. We don't make an equal amount of money, so we shouldn't be treated equal. We should be taxed according to, how did Marx put it? Each according to their ability, each according to their need. Fairness, justice, equity. That's the thing. Not equality. That's just some let's just all hold hands and, like Small World in Disneyland. Oh, yeah, sing Kumbaya and sit in a circle. No, goddammit, no, we don't need equality. We need fairness. We need everyone Dr. King said it best, there has to be a balance between the individual and the collective. During the Cold War, this is the late 60s, they asked Dr. King, well, are you a communist? And he said, communism forgets that life is individual. Capitalism forgets that life is social. What we need is a balance of the two. Scandinavia. He may not have said the word Scandinavia, but that's what he meant. Who is this woman you're talking about? I want her number. I'm calling her out.
Well, the thing is that by shutting down the response, we were all, a bunch of white people in the room were left hoping we would learn something, get some insight from her, but we did not.
Okay, if you're white, let me see here. How many of you are familiar with Scott Bakula, the actor? Quantum Leap? Okay. So, he starred in the most recent TV, well, actually not the most recent, because the most recent would be last year's Discovery. But a few years back, there was a show called Star Trek Enterprise. In the finale, or one of the last episodes, because they always save the most radical far-left episodes for like the end of the season, in case, the network says, okay, you've gone too far, we're cutting your budget. You're off the air. But they had this great, see, we all know that Mr. Spock is half human and half Vulcan. But the events of the series, Star Trek Enterprise, is set 100 years before that, before Spock was born. So the first hybrid of a human and a Vulcan is born, this little baby girl. And one of the characters, a Vulcan woman named T'Pol, is being held hostage by what we would call a white supremacist, a member of an organization called Terra Prime, played to perfection by the actor I'm sure you heard of, Peter Weller, RoboCop. Best acting I've ever seen out of the man. So there's this great scene when he's holding them hostage, and she's holding this baby, half human, half Vulcan baby. She thinks it's hers, it's not, but, you know, it's a cliffhanger. So Peter Weller's character, this racist, he's saying, I don't want this baby to exist because in 100 or so years, there won't be a pure blood human on the planet. We'll be a bunch of half Vulcan, elf-eared mongrels. And T'Pol is like, what's wrong with that? Life is change, she tells this character. She says, life is change. Our races were not the same millions of years ago as they are now. And a million years from now, they're not going to be there. We're going to be different. We're going to grow. We're going to evolve. We're going to change. If you can get white folks to accept that, I don't like pandering. And I don't like, you know, the concept of, well, you know, how did Bell Hooks put it? Society dictates that we should put white folks at ease. I'm ashamed to admit that in a way, this is putting white folks at ease. Because dealing with a white supremacist is almost like talking a suicide down from a ledge. Don't nuke us from orbit. Don't nuke the planet because your grandkids look like Lenny Kravitz or Halle Berry. Don't do it. Don't kill us all because, you know, don't damn us all because your grandkids look like Ice-T and Mariah Carey. No. Embrace them. They're just as human as they would have been if they came out looking like Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter, for God's sake. I mean, you know, get over that fear. And in the end, what we are talking about here is a kind of a fear that, what, your friend is a shrink? Okay, then she...
Not my friend.
No, I'm sorry, quote unquote. But, okay, she's a shrink, then she ought to know about this. She ought to know about how there is a movement, a small one but growing, of psychiatrists that are trying to get racism to be officially designated as a mental illness. And it is. No, it is. Because you figure, if you believe that the Jews are these, I don't know, these masterminds pulling puppet strings as the power behind the string, I mean, the power behind the throne. If you believe that, you know, there's this vast Zionist conspiracy and that the minions of the Zionists are us darkies going around infecting white women with our sperm, you know, like we're the orcs from Lord of the Rings or the zombies from Walking Dead or the Borg from Star Trek or a vampire or something. Contagion? A viral contagion? If you view something as all natural as ethnic miscegenation, I mean, Halle Berry, for instance, or Barack Obama, looking more like the black parent than the white parent, that's not mysticism. That's not a disease. That's not a zombie biting you in The Walking Dead. No. No, it's nature. You got a problem with it? Complain to the manufacturer. It's biology 101. If you have a problem with it, you might as well have a problem with erosion or photosynthesis. And if I got out my Glock and put a bullet to your head and said, I'm going to kill you, a fellow human being, because I have a problem with water eroding a rock, or I have a problem with a plant deriving energy from the sun, photosynthesis, erosion, guess what? You would be locked up in an insane asylum. You would be wrapped up in a straitjacket, too sweet, real quick. Right? In the mind of a commie, the general strike equals the biblical revelations. And if you go to a Christian and you say, hey, instead of waiting for Jesus to come back, instead of waiting for Gog and Magog and the Antichrist to put on some phantasmagorical display for your benefit, how about volunteering at a food bank? How about joining World Vision and feeding starving African kids? Oh no, I'm not going to do that because Jesus will be back any minute and Jesus will take care of everything. Well, the commies had the same attitude with a general strike. I try and tell the commies, don't censor, counter. Help me promote this instead of trying to kill white supremacists or censor them. They don't want to hear it. Oh no, the general strike is coming. And when the general strike comes, we'll have mob rule. And when the mob rule takes over, then we'll just, that'll take care of it. No, I don't want mobs angry mobs dictating policy? That's crazy. Not as crazy as the white supremacists, though. And as I said at the Finney Center, if you know the Batman mythos, you know that, most of Batman's villains are what you call criminally insane. The Shrink would understand that, if you're the Joker, you kill based on a joke. If you're the Riddler, you base a crime on a riddle. If you're Two-Face, you will kill based on the flip of a coin, on the number 2, on duality, binary, etc. If you're a white supremacist, you're similarly insane, except instead of basing a murder on a joke, like the Joker, you base a murder on, oh my God, I saw this black man with a white woman. Now, I would be remiss, I know I'm about to end I gotta end on this note because these people have been too good for me to forget them. You can barely see, but bam, Artisan Electric. I bring this up for a couple of reasons. One, they are currently running a literary serial that is pro-solar power, so I'm doing my part for the environment. But here's the thing though. The starring characters of my serial are named after real people. Timothy Coleman and James Harris Jackson. James Harris Jackson is a military intelligence analyst from Afghanistan who went to New York City for the express purpose of killing black men that he saw with white women. This happened March of last year. He goes up to a 66-year-old senior citizen, a homeless black man named Timothy Coleman, with I swear to God, I shit you not, a Game of Thrones sword. He tips behind this guy. Tiptoes behind him. I mean, keep in mind, Timothy Coleman's back is turned to this guy. They don't know each other. And he's like bent over the garbage trying to get recyclables out of the garbage and recycle cans and such. While his back is turned and his back is bent, out comes the Game of Thrones sword, and James Harris Jackson is stabbing the 66-year-old man in the back over and over and over. Timothy Coleman somehow, at 66 years old, with multiple stab wounds in the back, he finds the strength deep within, the intestinal fortitude, to crawl to the cops. But that's not what busts James Harris Jackson. Getting caught on the security camera isn't what got James Harris Jackson caught. What got him caught, he gets to Times Square after having killed Timothy Coleman. James Harris Jackson gets to Times Square with blood on his Game of Thrones sword, and he looks around and he actually sees an act, because Timothy Coleman was alone. He wasn't with any woman at all. But he actually sees a black man with a white woman in Times Square, and out comes the knife, and he's thinking, you know what? I may have a mental problem. I'm going to turn myself in. True story. He turns himself in, he confesses to the police, he's in jail to this day, where I'm sure his cellmate is someone that looks like Ving Rhames or Michael Clark Duncan, giving him a... Well, anyway, the point being, though, is that the starring characters of my literary serial, Solar Warrior, Artisan Electric, are named after, the villain is named after James Harris Jackson, and the hero is named after Timothy Coleman. So I would like to think that somewhere in heaven, Timothy Coleman is smiling. He's looking down, he's thinking, thank you, brother. Thank you for naming your superhero after my dead ass. Thank you.